5 o'clock, so I will begin today's cabinet meeting. I will just say that Councillor Jonathan Bacon has given his apologies for this evening, and move on to item 1 on the agenda, which is to confirm as true record the decision of the meeting held on the 12th of May. Is there anyone that wishes to agree that they were a true record that was here? Julie, thank you very much. Councillor Jones-Evans. And is there a seconder for that? Councillor Colove. Thank you very much. So I'll just sign those. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sarah, for doing those. That's very kind. Thank you. So we move on to item 2 on the agenda, which is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Councillor Carolisioni.
With reference to 6A, just to say that my son works for a local bus company.
Councillor Jarman.
Just to confirm that my father is under a care plan with the Isle of Wight Council.
Thank you. Are there any other declarations of interest? Nope, none. Okay, thank you. So we move on to public question times, and we have received no public questions, either written, and there are no members of the public present. So I move on to item number 4 on the agenda, which is the chairman's announcements. Only one thing to say, that I attended, not last Friday, but the Friday before, the staff awards ceremony. Obviously not held for a couple of years now due to COVID, but it was extremely moving to see the amount of work that the staff put in during COVID to get the island through everything that we needed to be. Some staff went absolutely above and beyond anything that should have been asked of normal people. I am hopeful that before our, that certainly at the start of maybe our council meeting, that we can have a clip. There was quite a lot of video footage of some of the things that have been achieved. I'd like to condense that down and have that as a presentation so that other people can see exactly what the staff, some of the staff did and their support. It was absolutely incredible. And I'm also extremely flattered at the support that I received as chairman, as leader of the council. That was really humbling and much appreciated. So thank you very much. We'll move on to item 5A of the report, which is the quarterly performance monitoring report. Councillor Jarman.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, the document has been was extensively reviewed by the scrutiny recently, and we had quite a long discussion on it, perhaps one of the longest we've had so far. The good news is I think the data that we're producing is very relevant to our operations. People seem to be very satisfied with it. And of course, the more data we produce, the more of a discussion that we have. And I think that's necessarily a good thing. And it's a very good thing that scrutiny takes such an interest in that. So I'm very thankful for their regards. I'll just take a few snapshots, if I may, going through it. Some of which I brought up with the scrutiny committee and others that have arisen since. The first one is there were some issues that were raised, I know, during one of the 4 council meetings when we were considering the budget. And just to point out that our contact centre timings have remained very positive indeed, with the calls being answered well within the accepted bandwidth. The second thing, which I take a personal interest myself, it regards the number of households in temporary accommodation. Not necessarily within any one portfolio, because it does have an impact on not only adult social care, and I'm sure with mental health, but also with our finances. You'll see that during Q4, we've got the figures roughly stable in March of 22 with what they were in February 21. I don't think that's any reason for congratulations, because I'd like the figure to actually be 0, but it is at least stable. The figures for the end of April 2022 are roughly about the same. But to note that at that time we had 41 families in B&B and 7 of those families regrettably with children. Moving on to the financial element, we need to note that within the financial accounts, we are going to miss, as a council, our declaration of our financial accounts within the due period, principally due to the work of the auditors. And this is an issue we have in common with the pension committee, in that the auditors are unfortunately not able to start their work until after the due dates that we need. So a number of the issues that we normally report on will be with that caveat in mind. The next one is to talk about Appendix 1 regarding strategic partnerships. We've noted a number of times here the outstanding issues regarding the island deal and the annual funding settlement of £1 million. That continues to be brought up to us through a number of different forums, including, I have to say, any question times that was held recently on the island, where it featured quite strongly within the discussion from the audience. On Appendix 2, I'm very pleased that we've now got our QR codes operational at the building entrance. This is, of course, quite a useful element for those who require support with their accessibility, where people can actually scan the QR code and understand what the function of that particular entrance is to our buildings. Moving on to the performance measures. Bless you. You'll see that at the Q3, we're forecasting a slight underspend. It's not a significant issue, but it's the right side of the line in some ways. And certainly in terms of we are forecasting a shortfall in our income, largely made up, of course, of, as we're all aware, of the loss of income from car parking, but also the continued loss from our leisure centres, which is quite a significant issue. Obviously, the return to our leisure centres activity is not as strong as one would like it to be, and I think there is necessarily within society some hesitation, I'm sure, as there is with my own friends and family, about engaging in large communal activities. Although one might not know that if one was attending the Isle of Wight Festival the other day. The other one to bring up is that we are continuing to look at the figures we use to talk about the debt that we have in terms of both our financing requirement as a council, the amount of debt that we have, and our borrowing. Those are all different measures and they measure quite different things. So going forward, what we'll find is more granularity in those figures as they're reported, so that we can compare apples with apples and not apples with oranges. On the adult social care, we have had a couple of discussions about some of the metrics that we use, one of which we are seeking to change is the outturn from the smoking cessation. Now, the measure that we formally use here is those who have been free of smoking for a number of weeks after the course. What we're seeking to do is to find if we can get more definition about those who move on to one of the intermediate methods, such as vaping, and how many then come off of that and become completely nicotine free and free of the addiction completely. Obviously a different metric and one that we haven't reported on before, but one that I think will be quite valuable in terms of measuring the overall long-term success of the programme. We talked the other day, in fact in 2 different forums, about the life expectancy tables for the island. These obviously feed into a number of the ONS data that we extract, and you'll see that with the life expectancy for males at birth, it shows a slight fall over the last couple of years, and with females a greater fall. It's difficult for us to interpret where that's coming from, although there have been a couple of discussions. I suspect that it's largely down to some of the continuing impact over that period of COVID, affecting what is, as we know, a particularly aged population on the Isle of Wight. The next figure to pull up is going to be relating to the number of people on our housing register, which is in the section Appendix 4. And we look at these quite carefully. The bands, of course, are also quite important, as well as the overall numbers. It is useful to know how many are on our housing register at any one time, but also useful to distinguish those who are in a very desperate need and those who have an expression of desire. And in between, of course, the number who are in a 3-bedroom property who only need a 1. It would be nice to relieve that blocking for families, and those who are in a property with limited bedrooms who need more because of the number of children or other means within the household, for example, disabilities. Moving on to the figures which relate to the number of empty residential properties. I know this is of concern to many of us, including Councillor Stevens, who takes great interest in it as well. We're recording here the number of empty properties we have on the island and how that has changed over the last year or so. It is regrettable that we have so many empty properties on the island, and it is, I think, also very unfortunate that we have such a high proportion of second homes on the island. Across England, of course, the number is much less, but here on the island, it is a very high proportion. And I think we've seen more evidence of that coming out in the metrics, where properties are being acquired to let, and principally a lot of that's coming out in the Airbnb market. And one only has to look at Airbnb and do a quick look at the Isle of Wight to see just how dense now the Airbnb properties are scattered across this island, including people buying, of course, new builds and then using them straight into that marketplace. What we're looking to do going forwards is to add a little bit of granularity to the figures here, which make it much more relevant to the island. So we will, going forwards, be having a couple of additional charts here. One, which is talking about the number of homes which are delivered, which are affordable to islanders. And the metric we're seeking to use for that is one we lifted from the NSPCC, not finalised yet, but it seems a very good metric to use, which is where households are using 35% or more of their average income solely to provide, to pay the rent, basically. That puts them into rental poverty. And rather than just using the national statistics for affordability, using the average income on the island will give us a much more immediate figure locally for what the impact is, and I think probably for what the actual need is, so we can measure it that way. The other one is the viability figure. I know that's probably not a proper English word, but again, we're seeking to find these figures probably from the nationwide index, again, based on the average income on the island. And the three figures there are 3, 4, and 5 times the average income on the island as being affordable to buy for islanders. The figures of 3, 4, and 5 are used by them depending on the level of deposit which is paid at the time. They will obviously lend a higher ratio where there's a higher deposit on the property. Children's services, I didn't have anything specific to mention on that, but I'll defer to Councillor Andre if there's anything in particular you wanted to raise. Thank you. On planning and community engagement, also didn't have anything particular to raise unless Councillor Fuller wanted to add anything at this stage.
Yeah, just one thing that I know is a priority for the administration, and I think it is a priority for all councillors on the island, and that is brownfield sites. One of the things that was reported to me this year, 2022, is that 75% of our applications that have been approved have been on brownfield sites, and I think that's quite a positive steer. It again, a lot depends on what planning applications come forward in the coming months, and there are some on the horizon that is of concern to me and will be of concern to residents and their communities because we don't have an island plan as yet. So that is something we are watching with bated breath. Thank you, Chairman.
So the next item was on Appendix 7, which is regeneration. The only thing I wanted to point out here was the chart which talks about the average gross weekly wage on the Isle of Wight. I think it's useful to note over the last few years how that has increased, which is pleasing, but also important is how it is closing the gap between the average on the Isle of Wight and the average for Great Britain as a whole. We still lag behind as an island, but the gap is, of course, closing on a very even trajectory. So I don't know if Councillor Jones-Evans wanted to add anything on that section.
Yeah, just obviously it's very pleasing news, and of course it's one of the pillars of the regeneration strategy that we want to close that gap and make the average wage much higher. And of course, with our current strategy of attracting higher paid jobs, as well as filling the vacancies we have for our core sectors such as health and social care. So it's really important that these continue to be priorities for the administration.
Thank you. I didn't have anything specific to raise under the environment, heritage and waste. Save perhaps just to note the figure on carbon emissions and its movement, which is healthy to look at, both in terms of the UK average and for the Isle of Wight. I think it's also useful to look at how the breakdown comes, in that roughly 25% of it is attributable to commercial industrial, just under a quarter of it to road, and the same for domestic heating. And to have that distinction is quite useful. Under highways, PFI and infrastructure, I don't have, again, nothing specific to raise on that, unless Councillor Jordan would like to add anything. No? Good. The only final thing to note on this section is that it's quite clear that some of the data is quite out of date because of COVID. There hasn't been metrics on some of the fields for the last 18 months, or indeed in some cases for 2 years. And that can give a bit of an unfortunate perspective when looking at the table, where the most recent figures on the right-hand side appear actually from 2019. So what we're going to do next time, I think, is to seek to improve that by adding in spaces where there's missing data, so that that perspective is restored. And also to think a little bit about the index that we're using on the left-hand index, where in some cases the level of graduation within that index is remarkably small. So, for example, on waste, it appears as though there's been a huge decline, whereas in reality it's actually 12 cases, which is very small compared with the overall amount. Unless there's anything people would like to raise, that's the report, and I would commend it to the Cabinet.
Thank you. If I just mention what happened in this scrutiny meeting, and that was data regarding response times for the handling of calls to the contact centre to be circulated to the committee. That came up. The Cabinet Member for Planning and Enforcement, we asked to clarify the statement within Appendix 6 in relation to discussions on a key activity in respect of greenfield sites not already allowed for the draft island plan. And see that the performance report for Q4 was noted. So those were the recommendations from this scrutiny committee.
Leader.
Are there any other questions from anyone here first? No? Okay, Councillor Spink.
My question is for Councillor Fuller, and it's the question that was asked at corporate scrutiny, which, Leader, you've just read out. I'd like to know, please, what the discussions in the penultimate paragraph are, which simply reads, officers are in discussion with the portfolio holder on how to take key activity in respect of greenfield sites not already allowed for in the draft island plan forward, within the context of the island planning strategy and the national planning policy and legislation.
Councillor Fuller, would you like to respond?
Thank you for that, Councillor Spink. Apologies for not responding earlier on. I was on leave last week. Yes, there is a written response going to Councillor Spink. There is ongoing discussion, as I mentioned earlier on, concerning brownfield sites. It is a priority that we see those brownfield sites developed as soon as we possibly can, and there will be further discussions ongoing with officers to see if we can do whatever we can to ensure that brownfield sites remain a priority for development in the future. Thank you.
Okay, so we move on to see there is a written response on its way. So we move on now to item 6A on the report, which is the concessionary travel reimbursement. Councillor Phil Jordan.
Thank you, Chair. Essentially what this is a means of reimbursing the travel operators, bus operators, following grant funding during the COVID period when their travel numbers reduced and their income reduced, thereby putting under threat the scan of the infrastructure of bus services and fare charges. The proposal is, and this is from government legislation, government guidance rather than legislation, is that we maintain the pre-COVID level of concessionary fare reimbursement for a period of time for the financial year 22-23, and to look again in the financial year 23-24 at returning to the original reimbursement on bus numbers. Now, the reason that this is in place and we need to be mindful is that the numbers of bus passengers is still running at about 80%. And as a commercial operator, the temptation would be to cut services in terms of times, numbers and scope of the bus services. And as a community and a council, we feel that it would be best served if we were to agree with the bus operators, which the recommendation I'll come on to in a moment does, in that we maintain the pre-COVID levels of reimbursement for the concessionary fares until March 2023, and pre-COVID being, I think, 1920. There are a couple of other options. I suggest I'm very happy to take questions and for you to consider them. One is to not do that and to implement a 4.8% flat increase, which doesn't take account, of course, of the reduced numbers of travel. And the third option is to re-enter negotiations to see if there is a better way of returning to normality from the position we're in. Government's guidance is that if we make that decision, we should continue to pay at a monthly reducing rate anyway over the coming months. So our recommendation is instead to maintain the pre-COVID levels on the basis that the bus operators maintain pre-COVID levels of service. So same bus services, same times, same costs and same scope, same network. And the recommendation is for us to accept that. The second part of the recommendation is there was set aside in the budget a sum of money for this. And if we were to move along this route and implement the reimbursement on the pre-COVID levels, there remains a portion of the ring-fence budget that we set aside that we would need to do a business case to maintain in reserves in case of future changes. And I draw your attention to the news just recently that the existing bus company may well have been sold to a new operator, and we've yet to understand what their view of commercial operating is, that we maintain that ring-fence budgetary amount for the rest of this financial year in case of changes that the bus operator may make. So, Chair, there we are. The recommendation is, if you would wish me to read it, but you can all read it. As Cabinet requires approval to maintain the pre-COVID levels of fare reimbursement for the financial year to March 23, in line with DfT guidance to local authorities under their alternative COVID recovery strategy, see our Appendix A, which will enable monthly concessionary payments to be made at a pre-COVID reimbursement level on the basis that local bus services are likewise maintained at a pre-COVID level. Essentially, we're saying provide the same services and we'll give the same amount of money. And the second part of the recommendations I just mentioned is for us to approve the development of a business case to ring fence the remaining revenue budget for concessionary travel reimbursement above the outline level for the purposes of using the funding should it be necessary to provide further support to maintain the bus levels of service. There we are, colleagues. Happy to take questions or to approve it as you wish, Chair.
Thank you. Before we go on to that, I did forget to do the recommendation and take a vote on the Q4 report. So could I please remind you to just rewind one's brains for 10 minutes and go back to that. And the recommendation is the Cabinet approves the performance and finance report for the quarter ended 31st of March and the priority report detail as set out in appendices 1 to 9. So if I could just have you to vote on those, all those in favour? Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And then question, Councillor Paul Fuller for Councillor Jordan.
Thank you. It's disappointing to hear about the bus passengers on the transport on our rural transport. I think the concern that I have is that if we are looking for sustainable communities, is there a risk that we may be losing some of our rural bus services in the future? I think that is a real worry because, again, within the context of the island planning strategy, we are looking at making sure that we are developing in rural communities. And if there are going to be developments allowed in rural communities, particularly affordable social housing and things, how are you going to be able to to contend with that if people don't have public transport? And I just want some kind of assurance that there is the right messages coming forward from government. We know that when we applied for funding in the past, we didn't get very much from government. I don't think we got anything at all, did we, for the last rural bus settlement? And I was just wondering what your thoughts on that may be, Councillor Jordan.
Thank you, Paul. Absolutely great ongoing concern. You know that we created a bus service improvement plan and a bus enhancement partnership through which we made a bid under the government scheme for buses and for which we received absolutely zero, but still committed to the bus enhancement plan, which is a great sleight of hand of government to give us the responsibility of improving our bus services and not giving us 1 penny to do it. So you can only make your own mind up. Paul, it's a great ongoing concern, probably essentially why we must support on this recommendation tonight, and we continue and will do with the new bus operator to negotiate with them to try and deliver some of our aspirations in the bus partnership.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to ask questions on that one? Councillor Jones-Evans. Second the proposal. Okay.
It's by Councillor Jordan.
Thank you. So all those in favour of those recommendations, please show. Thank you very much. So the next one is down to you too, Councillor Jordan, which is 6B, the Isle of Wight Parking Places Order.
Thank you again, Chair. This is to do with a piece of land currently used as a car park in Maresfield Road in East Cowes. It has been a long time coming. It is already used, and we have considered charging for the use of the car park to at least bring some equality to residents and other communities around the island. However, Chair, I would say that this has gone through due process, of course. And what is not obvious from this report is that this piece of land was part of the, let's hope I get this right, the Social Prosperity Fund application, which we were successful in, and for which was destined to become a site for houses. Now, my understanding is that the success of the Social Prosperity Fund has to be delivered in a period of time. I'm not sure what that period is, but there is a period of time for it to be delivered and spent. That's a usual process for grant funding anyway. And that whilst I am bringing the recommendation to you that we implement the changes to the parking places order so that we are able to charge, that we don't do that as the recommendation, implement as soon as practically possible, that we subject that to a project assessment that takes into account the timeframes for the development scheme to be delivered under the Social Prosperity Grant on that site. The reason for that is, Chair, that we could spend some time and money whilst we're not putting in parking meters. It's an application. There'll be signage, there'll be officer time. We're already 3 months into the year. The 4,000 is for a full year. So we're already down to 3,000. If we were to take a month or two to implement it, we'd be down to 2,000 with the cost of implementing it out of that. If we were to start building after that, I don't know the timeframes for the building. I'm suggesting that we look at that. Otherwise, we are spending time, effort, officers' money to return very little. I mean, very little, less than thousands potentially. So my recommendation is that we strike out. So it is recommended that the Cabinet approve the changes to parking places as set out in the Isle of Wight Council Parking Place Order 2022, Appendix 3. And cross out and implement as soon as possible, and insert subject to a project assessment that takes into account the timeframes for the development scheme to be delivered under the Social Prosperity Grant Fund at that site.
I think we're just writing down that change. Councillor Paul Fuller.
I'm happy to second that proposal, Chairman.
Okay, Judy?
Yeah, just very quickly, I think it's to me it's also about levelling up. It's about levelling up across the Isle of Wight as well, and you know, that there being parking for people, everyone to use, because the report does say that once the parking charges are introduced on this former car park, as it was Mesfield Road, that other users will be able to use it. They'll be able to use their all-island parking permit on there. I do understand at the moment it's free of charge to people maybe leaving their vehicles there for a long time. So this enables people to have that turnover as well, and for other people to be able to access that area too. So it swings and roundabouts, but yeah, Councillor Jordan's right to bring up the time scale. But as we know, every penny counts at these councils at this moment.
Councillor Love?
Thank you. Obviously, this affects me as the ward member for East Cowes. The car park has never been a public car park before. It's been a private car park used by businesses and interested parties in that area under licence. Councillor Jordan is quite right that this has got a very limited time scale on it in terms of how long this car park will be there, assuming that everything goes forward. Whilst I can't give a specific date, it's 2024 is the period by which the money has to be spent. So it has to be done by then. So or at least started by then. So it's going to be a fairly quick thing. Obviously, I'm the local member, and there's a considerable amount of concern about that in my area. I accept that this is one way that the administration needs to raise money in order to offset all of the losses which we have from the continued cutting of government grants. However, I have to represent my constituents in this particular matter, and I shall be abstaining in this decision.
Okay, could you switch your mic off? Are there any other questions or queries? No, so then we'll move to the recommendation read out with the subject to project assessment, which hopefully won't take too long to assess that so that we can move forward. So all those in favour of that recommendation, please show. One abstention, yeah. Okay, sorry.
Chair, thank my colleague, Councillor James Evans, to make the clarity that we don't necessarily need to bring this back to cabinet. That the recommendation that we've made is that we are agreeing to charge for parking there, but that's subject to information that we don't have in front of us, is when the development will start. I really think we need clarification on this. Could be an officer's subject to the report. This is just about a time frame.
I think we're quite clear on that. Thank you. Okay, it's you again. Item 6C, Levelling Up Fund, round 2, approval of project proposal for submission by the Isle of Wight Council.
Excuse me, Chair. I just need to give a declaration of interest because just reading in one of the lines that mentions the People First Zone and the High Street Heritage Action Zone. Just let's say that as a non-pecuniary interest, I'm the chair of that particular group. So just
thank you. So back over to you, Phil.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I spent too much time on this because this is us bidding again under the government levelling up fund scheme. How successful we're going to be, we'll keep our fingers crossed. Let's hope we're successful. We may not be, but we're here to instruct the Director of Regeneration to arrange for the submission of the Island Green project as the council's bid to the government levelling up fund round 2. It is a levelling up bid specifically and solely for transport related schemes. It's hard for me to even consider that somebody might not want us to put in a bid to government for 10 or 12 million pounds. So I recommend that we accept, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Jones Evans and then Councillor Paul Fuller.
Thank you. Yeah, this is really important bid that we're putting in here, and you know, if it may be more wide for levelling up in general, but not transport, we may have done something else. But I'm really pleased that this has come forward because there's been long standing, not just aspirations, but actually, you know, a lot of work has been done over the last 10 years, I know of least, to link that the west, and with Newport, you know, for we used to call it the Gunville Greenway, that was the West Wight Greenway. There's been so much work being done and a lot of work being done on the scenes to talk to various landowners. So this is really, it's all coming together now, and having that cross Newport link and then out to Ryde is really important because they're very important community corridors, as well as enhancing our reputation as a cycle island, but giving more safer routes for people to cycle and walk upon away from the main road. So yeah, very, very pleased this is coming forward. And our MP has been written to as well, so he'll be looking for his support, which he has pledged to give, because that's part of the levelling up process. Just a quick plug, if I may. So everyone has an opportunity to feed into this plan because there's a survey on at the moment. It closed on the 24th of June. So I'd really urge as many people as possible to click on the survey. It's a very, very simple couple of minutes on Survey Monkey. The easiest way to get to it is on the Isle of Wight Council website under our news, and you'll see it there as the Island Green Link survey. Takes a couple of minutes, but basically everyone who answers that survey, their answers then will form part of the submission. So it's really, really important. So I know you've only got a few days to do it. 24th of June, deadline, please. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Paul Fuller.
Thank you. I think I should declare a non-prejudicial interest in that I'm chairman of the local access forum. Listening to what Julie was saying, yes, it's great to have a link to Newport. I would like to say it's great to have a link to the West Wight, and I think that's so important as well. I think we need to be able to support our rural communities. So thank you.
Okay, so if no one else has got any further questions on that one, we'll move to the vote. All those in favour, please. Seconded by Councillor Jones Evans. All those. Okay, that means Councillor Jordan, you now get to rest your voice. And now we have Councillor Ian Stevens, who gets to use this quite a lot because quite a bit on the agenda. So item 7A, homelessness and rough sleeping strategy for Councillor Ian Stevens. Thank you.
It's the action plan that supports the homelessness and rough sleeping strategy. So the action plan is from the period 2022 to 24, and it's to support the homelessness and rough sleeping strategy of 2019 to 24, organised around three core pillars: prevention, intervention, and recovery. And I can't stress too strongly how we need to support this and support the action plan, which is Appendix 1. I think that I sometimes get disappointed. I get disappointed in the amount of travel that we make in local authority life to get things done and get things forward to support those in need. What I would say is that, and in the papers, there is a small paragraph on the effects on our children. And when you consider that we've got young children in bed and breakfast at this moment in time, trying to further their education, trying to get on with daily lives and trying to get some normality. These are the elements that really are within the action plan, which support and try to move us on to a more positive place for those people. And when I hear about car parks and other such areas, such as down at Mayersfield in East Cowes, oh, I'd like to see houses go up there tomorrow, if not yesterday. Now, I get pilloried because I put it out there as it is. I put it out there and I get quoted with my words, which come back. They don't bite me. I'm pleased with it. I'm pleased that they've made some effect on people. I'm pleased that people go out there and start to research the way that housing can be delivered, and that's across all walks of this island. Every person needs to be engaged in looking at how we can take some of the pain away for some of those individuals and some of those families that have been affected by homelessness. And let's face it, it's not always brought on by themselves. And this is why we need to have this homeless and rough sleeping action plan brought forward and passed today. Because as I say, there are three pillars attached. Now, I didn't write the three pillars, but I would like to say I own them with others, because we really have to look at the situation with regards to prevention. And if you look through here, I'll give you the page 118, paragraph 21, financial and budget implications. We've got some funding. The officers I know only too well, these officers within our homelessness department, work their socks off. every day, and I speak to them, I say, every day you come in and you're faced with a problem, a big, big problem. And then when you've solved that or helped to solve it, you find another one. I said, how the hell do you keep going, coming in every day of the week, listening to problems from others, which don't just impact on the individual that is making the application and trying to get some positive reaction from the Isle of Wight Council. It impacts on their families and the families of their families. So I look at this and I think £776,606 ring fence to support homeless prevention activity. Now that's not just paying someone to go away. That's actually trying to keep them in their original home, trying to keep a roof over their head. Our officers that deal with this, they're worth their weight in gold. They're fantastic people, very talented, and very loyal to what they try to take out on our behalf. This isn't political. This is about people. This is about the place, the island that we all love. And it's where people deserve to enjoy their time on the island and their period of growing up. So I haven't said too much about the plan. The plan actually speaks for itself. It's Appendix 1. It's well set out, and you will see there's timescales, short term, long term, and medium term, and they're written under the various 3 pillars. So, as I say, I would touch on the intervention side of it, and if you look at if you look down through it, this is what we say we will do. We will improve practice and provision of services. We've got to do that to actually take this forward. We will improve practice and provisions of services for people with mental health, with substance misuse, etc., etc. Well, if we don't damn well do that, we're failing anyway. So I want you to follow your nose down the page if you haven't already, read it, and then stick your hand up and vote, and let's get this through. It needs to be done without any further ado from me. And let's concentrate on how we can get people a better life who need it and are coming to us to actually apply for what we can give them, whatever we can give them. And as I say, we've got families in caravans, we've got families in bed and breakfast, in rooms, houses of multiple occupancy. This isn't a political football. This is life, and this is hard life. And I want you to actually all start to realise that. Those that are within the chamber and those that are elsewhere tuned in. It's not about point scoring, it's about people. I'm going to end it there, and I would look for a seconder for my recommendation, which is Cabinet approves the Isle of Wight Homelessness and Rough Sleeping Strategy Action Plan 22 to 24 as set out in Appendix 1.
Second that. Oh. Sorry. I will come back to you after I've spoken through here. Okay, so we've been seconded. That item has been seconded. Sorry, Councillor Speak. Okay, I will ask if there's any questions of our group here first, of this committee, and then I will come to you before we go to the vote. I'm just taking the second. Thank you. Well, thank you. Okay, so all those, so I've seconded it. Now, who wishes to speak? Councillor Paul Fuller, Councillor Carl Love, and Councillor Julie Jones-Evans in that order. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I was just going to ask the Cabinet member if there's any progress yet on development of our own affordable housing for homeless people on the island, and where are we on this? I know we discussed this several months ago, and it would be useful to know where we are with progress on that, please.
Can I pass that to the Director for Regeneration, Chris Ashton?
Thank you, councillors. Yes, obviously the housing strategy is set out has various strands to actually address this issue, and that crucially is obviously around supply. The council, in its role across a whole range of matters, particularly in the planning domain, as Councillor Fuller will be aware, is here to create the environment within which market housing and social housing can come forward. So to that effect, obviously we've seen an increase in the number of affordable housing units completed on the island over the last 12 months compared to previous years, a specific number of around 140. So from taking that forward in terms of market response and creating the enabling of that, the council itself, as you're referencing, committed to actually intervening in an area of what is market failure. The impact of the pandemic in particular has had a significant effect on the housing market on the island, and the availability of private sector rented accommodation in particular has created a unique environment within which the council must respond. So the administration in its budget in February identified a commitment to supporting the introduction of an affordable modular housing scheme on the island, and work has continued to identify a delivery partner for delivery of that scheme. It's between 18 and 20 units within the site identified within the county town, and identifying the potential partner best suited to meet the needs of that particular client group. We also are aware, obviously, in terms of our regeneration schemes, of housing being an important element to those, and both within the master planning of those schemes and in partnership for delivery of schemes, housing will be a key feature within each of those. And reports on the committee's agenda tonight obviously reflects some of that market provision as well as affordable provision within the island. So it's a complex challenge. The councils and Councillor Stevens in particular is committed to addressing it, and is giving the leadership to our housing teams to actually deliver the improvements that the cabinet seeks.
Did you want to come back with a supplementary, Councillor Fuller?
I did really, because I know we were looking at the modular housing in February, and I just, when you're homeless, and I think Jamie Brenchley has made some very, very good points here. In young families in bed and breakfast is not acceptable, and I think it should be a priority, and it is a priority of this administration to actually move that forward. And I am a little bit disappointed that we aren't making more progress than we should be. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cole-Love.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Ian Stevens, for comments you made. Just wanted to just touch basically that we are duty bound to build on the bench keys, whether if we agree or not. We're duty bound because that's part of the contract which was agreed, and it's actually on 2 sites, not just 1 site. I know that expressions of interest are out for those sites at this moment, so some progress is being made there. I personally favour extra care for lots of different reasons, because it actually allows housing behind it to be freed and is more likely to be occupied by local people. And so that's really important. And of course, there is a time element to that. So we know that some action needs to be taken by 2024 or a particular date. Could clarify that, that would be helpful. Of course, the issues there that we just briefly talked about in terms of car parking, East Cowes doesn't have any long stay car parking. So there are some issues there about displacement of that, and that needs to be built into whatever happens. And it's really important, and that's why I'm quite nervous about that. But I think all in all, I feel fairly confident now that that housing is going to be delivered. Otherwise, we're going to have to hand that land back, and that will happen fairly quickly.
Councillor Love, you can switch your microphone off. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I just wanted to thank the author of this report and Councillor Stevens for bringing this forward. Makes quite hard reading, actually, especially you read the section on the impact of young people and future generations. It's really hard to read those words, and we really understand why housing is a corporate top of our corporate priorities. And I think the 3 pillars, the plan here is excellent. You know, it's very clear what we're going to be doing, how we're going to be doing it, and the measures of success. So really pleased that this is going to be easy to track and monitor. And again, you know, it's very good that you're looking forward, you know, the financials, that this may not get further funding of this in future years. So it's really good that we're addressing it here and now and getting on with it. So that's why if I had 2 hands to put up, I would, but I'll just be putting 1 up.
Thank you, Councillor Debbie Andre.
Thank you, Leader. I think no one would deny that we need a homelessness strategy, but a strategy without an action plan is a hollow vessel. This action plan is very clearly set out with deliverables. It's got timeframes. The impact on young people, much of what I was going to say has been said, but just to add to that, we know that the effects of early years on our young people are absolutely crucial to their development moving forward. And this action plan will help undoubtedly with putting those mitigations into place so that this is part of their future. The other thing I'd like to draw attention to is item 3 under pillar 1 on page 123. We will ensure that we commission the right models of housing, really listening to what local people tell us that they need, and including extra care, supported living and shared lives. One of our commitments was to work more closely with our town and parish councils. And there was some training the other night that was extremely well attended and very well delivered, that actually put forward that local town and parish councils, or resident groups for that point, can actually do a housing needs survey within their area. Would Councillor Stevens agree that to promote that within our town and parish councils would actually be a very valuable part of this action plan? Thank you.
Most definitely. And both the leader, myself and Councillor Fuller have attended our walk meetings to actually put forward the housing agenda at the top of their list, or endeavour to give it a push that needs to make sure that the town and parish councils assist us. At that very meeting, I asked the chair, Diana Conyers, to forward any one town or parish council's suggestion for empty properties or land in their vicinity. I've received none, but I've received one from a parish council that said they don't want this, they don't want that. But that's another story. You see, people are very quick to recognise what they don't want, but they're not that too quick to actually look and see what the community do want. What the community do want, and possibly a small development that might help maintain the opening of a school or a village shop or 2, or the village pub, etc., etc. It's about village life. So whilst we're talking about care for the elderly in some areas, we must also talk about the vibrancy of village life. You know, and having lived in a couple of villages on the Isle of Wight, I'll tell you what, there's nothing better than having the heart of a village pumping and community coming together. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Phil Jordan.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that, Ian. There are a couple of comments I want to make. Firstly, we need to be careful when we talk about homelessness, exactly what that means. and who are involved in that, because if you don't understand who the homeless people are, how on earth are you going to provide accommodation? Because what accommodation, where? You have no idea. But Ian, in answer to Councillor Fuller, hasn't mentioned that today, this very day, this morning, early this morning, Monday morning, alongside Councillor Jarman, Councillor Stevens and myself, and some senior housing officers and chief executive and some legal support, we gave very clear direction to make an immediate intervention into the homeless to take care of those in bed and breakfast that are therefore homeless because they're in B&B, and especially the families, and that the process started today in terms of providing homes. So that could and should be buying homes that are available and putting families in them that are on in B&B at the moment. The numbers Councillor Jarman mentioned earlier. We started that process today. Councillor Stevens has been reticent in telling this cabinet and those watching that actually we've done something today and we are moving on it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Right, Councillor Spink, your chance for your question.
Thank you, Chair. My question is to Councillor Stevens, please, and that is really this, that we've had a number of exchanges of emails recently between the two of us, and there is a question coming. We had a number of questions, a number of emails between the two of us, and we both want to work towards solving, in inverted commas, the homelessness problem and also affordable housing. My concern is that the delivery plan, and I don't try and make this as a political point, needs to be more specific. For example, we can all say that we will improve the practice and provision of services for people with substance misuse issues. We can all say that, but we need an action plan dealing with the nuts and bolts of how that's going to be done. And just taking a number of examples here, for example, I commend the intention, but it's lacking in detail. And I don't ask that the Cabinet not approve the action plan, because an action plan needs to be passed. But I would ask if you would undertake, Councillor Stevens, to provide detail to this action plan within a relatively short space of time, so that those of us who aren't part of the administration can see and know that action is being taken and in definable movements. So, for example, another example, if I can find it now, is that we're going to approach systemic, improve the practice. And I'm sorry, I've lost my reference now, but there's a reference in here to improving. Oh, here it is. Ensure there are no systemic barriers to health provision, including access to GPs and dental care. Well, everyone on the Isle of Wight, I think, would like to improve that, but that isn't in itself an action plan saying that you're going to improve it. We need to know if that's part of your action plan, how it's going to be done, and specifically when. And I'd ask you, please, to ask that question in respect of each item of this action plan and turn it into something that staff can, for example, say, we're going to go out and we're going to do point 1B today. Because otherwise, these lofty philosophical views are never going to come into real action. And I have to say that I was impressed, if I may say so, at corporate scrutiny, Councillor Stevens, that you accepted that the affordable housing plan was in difficult times. I think you said it ground to a halt. I'm trying to avoid, as it were, by having a proper action plan, the same happening in homelessness. So I'm asking you if you will undertake, please, to ask those questions of each and every item on the action plan and then publish a more specific addendum to the action plan as soon as possible.
Points well made. What I would say is that within, and as Councillor Jordan intimated earlier by mentioning our earliest morning meeting, work as a team. I speak with lead officers. We've got a good lead officer in Jamie Brenchley. I'll talk with him, who also will talk with people who are stakeholders and support that he will be going to with regard to this action plan. It's been out for consultation for quite a while before coming back in. So I cannot give you a guarantee of how we can shape that up. I can give you a guarantee that we can come forward with some milestones, etc., that could be reviewed by yourself and indeed by other members. I think that's probably a way forward. But to actually say I could go out and rewrite this as it is at the moment, I don't think would be the way forward. As I say, it's already been looked at off island as well, and seriously considered, and we've commented and come back to where we are today. So, in short, I think what you've actually brought forward is valid and positive criticism. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Allow me to take it away. Allow me to talk with lead officers. Allow me to see what we can come forward with, and let's put something in draft to you. Let's put this forward so that we've got the action plan today. But action plans are always and should always be current. So if we need to adjust anything, and this is what's good about you, Councillor Spink. You do question. You question in the right manner. You question things appropriately. So if I can take these things on board, let me take them away. Let me come back to you via email. We can have a discussion, and let's see what we can do to make the vision of an action plan that you see the action plan that we can actually produce. Is that okay?
Yes, I'm happy with that. Thank you.
Councillor Brodie.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Stevens, we've had quite a lot of correspondence recently and phone calls about the whole housing situation on the island. And of course, homelessness is only going to get worse, in my view, under the current government, and unless any future government changes its approach to housing, but that's my personal view. As part of addressing homelessness in the future, we have a budgetary statement 4 months old now from February, where we committed as an Isle of Wight Council to start building social housing with the permission of the majority of members to borrow £40 million. In the paper that you submitted to corporate scrutiny last week, it was entirely depressing how little has been achieved, and I think you would admit that that is actually the situation. And I listened to Mr. Ashman behind you, and I found that quite depressing as well, because all I hear is excuses, excuses, excuses. When I worked in local government many, many years ago in the London Borough in housing, we used to have a director of housing, because we understood in local government those days that after food, warmth, shelter is the next most important thing. But in the over the last few decades, directors of housing had disappeared. I think the last one we had on this island was Mark Howell. I think you probably remember him as well, Ian. Have you thought about moving away from the silo situation of housing in this authority, where it's spread across from memory, regeneration, adult social care, public health, probably a few other directorates or whatever, but nobody is actually focused on housing development. You've got the firefighters of housing need, but nobody is really focused on housing development. Have you thought about getting that sort of person in place, a true professional to drive forward, who would probably thank the Lord, if there is a Lord, I don't agree with it, but thank the Lord at the possibility of borrowing £40 million and start building social housing. Thank you, Chair.
Thought about it. I've dreamt about it. I've had nightmares about it. I've been up at certain hours of the day when probably other people are asleep before the milkman cometh and even after the milkman's gone. So I've thought so hard about this. It's something that is so important. I don't like, I've been here quite a while, probably too long, but probably won't stand again. What I would say is that I can remember director of housing. I can remember a directorate where everything was under one umbrella. I can remember you had one go-to person that you could either applaud or bitch about, and not being. But I remember those days. I think when I came in as part of the administration with the Alliance, Councillor Brodie, and you know that if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be over here now. So you understand the situation I came into. I didn't know where housing was. It was all over the show. And whether it's right or wrong, it's been dispersed to a degree. It might have its strengths. I think it's got a hell of a lot of weaknesses. And perhaps I shouldn't be saying this, but I know that our chief exec at this moment in time has taken on board my concerns. I've put my neck in the noose, and I want us to achieve. I don't think we'll ever solve everything, but I want us to achieve as much as we can. And I think that you're quite right. We need someone to steer the ship, someone who can be the go-to person for housing. And I think that we're heading down that route. And I'm going to leave it there at this moment in time. But we're heading in the right direction with that. I've got some damn good members in this administration. I've got some damn good members the other side of the chamber. I recognise that, and as I've always said, it's not going to be me that solves it, or even the Alliance administration. It's going to be us. We're all going to solve it, or put the effort in to do so. And I'm sorry I can't offer anything other than to say that I wouldn't have said, okay, give me housing and poverty and let me get on with it. If I thought that anyone else in the cabinet could do it, because I'm going to reach out. I'm going to be speaking to you yet again, Councillor Brodie, and to Councillor Spink, and to other councillors, and we're going to do it together. It's not going to be a feather in anyone's cap, and it's certainly not going to, and it shouldn't be a political football. It should be the Isle of Wight Council acting as the Isle of Wight Council, and it shouldn't be members against officers and staff. And I think that's where we need to be. Whatever we got in place at the moment, and I said the other night at scrutiny, it wasn't working. There's no traction. I can't be more honest. Yet we still, as our director, Chris behind me said, we still managed 100, and it was 138 affordable dwellings last year. Now, but that's not good enough. That's nowhere near good enough. Nowhere near good enough at all. So I'm going to leave it at that, Councillor Brodie. I've answered your question. I'm pushing for a head of housing, someone who can steer the ship. I'm pushing for a drive on empty properties as well. Councillor Jordan's right. Yes, we don't want something that's a name at company's house and nothing more. We want something that's going to do the damn lot for us, and not just to supposedly build housing. We're an RP. We want to rent housing. it's if it's a worrying time, it's going to be also a good time to roll up our sleeves and get on with it. Leave it at that. But anytime you want me, call me, and that goes across the chamber. We can have a chat. We can have an email chat or a chat in person. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no further questions, thank you for that, Councillor Stevens. We go to the vote, which is Cabinet approves the Isle of Wight Homelessness and Rough Sleeping Strategy Action Plan 22-24 as set out in Appendix 1. All those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. So we move on to the next item, which is you again, Councillor Stevens, which is the minimum energy efficient standards policy for domestic residential dwellings. This is government legislation brought down for us. If you'd like to go through the papers.
I'll go through the paper. I am obviously committed to this because it strengthens the arm of local authorities with regards to energy efficiency and the offending rating providers. Let's start from the beginning. Let's say, okay, look, rental properties properties are given a banding, an EPC banding of A to G at this moment in time. F and G are the two where we are not so efficient with saving energy and emissions. So what I would say is, as far as I'm concerned, we need to try and once again be as green as we can and be utilising our neighbourhoods department, etc. We need to make sure measures of energy efficiency are utilised at the optimum, and that might well be that with the checks that are done on properties, there might well be a penalty incurred on the property owner, and that's as I said. I think it's the housing renewal section. Housing renewing section will regulate those standards. They do a good job anyway, and it's a question really now of okay, just saying to the local landlords, etc., that and the majority of landlords obviously want this, if not all of them, because quite truthfully, they want energy efficiency within their premises. So what it is to take forward standards of insulation and heating, etc., to mitigate energy loss and remove rental properties from bands F and G. So I'm going to leave it at that, and if anyone's got any questions, we can elaborate a bit more if you want. But the maximum amount is, as in the paper, is £5,000, but obviously smaller amounts will be incurred as we go forward. We want to do light touch on the Isle of Wight. We certainly don't want to use a sledgehammer to crack a nut, and we want to work with our property owners and our rental providers.
Okay, I will just say that there is help and support out there. I know we were going to raise that, which is Warm Up Wight. So there is the help and support. This is the part Councillor Ian Stevens has poverty under his portfolio. The more that we can get these homes warmer and more snug and tight, the less pressure that is on having to fuel these properties. This is why it's absolutely essential that we make this, and there are grants and things available. Councillor Debbie Andre, then Councillor Paul Fuller.
Thank you, Chair. I must apologise. I need to declare an interest here, as I am actually an owner of a residential property, but I'd like to take advice from the monitoring officer as to whether I should take part in this. I am aware of this policy. I can confirm I'm not contravening this policy, but it obviously does apply to me, being the owner of a residential property. should I remove myself from the rest of this debate, or do you feel it's acceptable for me to continue?
Through you, through you, Chairman. Obviously, it's ultimate decision for you as an individual councillor. Clearly, the matter does relate to minimum efficiency standards affecting buildings. You are sort of a landlady, from what I understand. It's always difficult where the line's drawn. Therefore, I'm grateful you actually mentioning it this evening. Probably sort of a cautious advice might be to withdraw. It is national legislation, etc., but its perceptions can be difficult. And even if you are right to remain in the chamber, in a practical way, you might think it's better off to be outside and let others take the decision, and then it's you're not having any practical difficulties in terms of.
Thank you for that advice, and I do accept that it could be a pecuniary interest, and therefore I will leave for the rest of this item. Thank you.
Councillor Paul Fuller.
Thank you. With that, I think I need to declare a non-prejudicial interest, as I am a trustee for the Footprint Trust, which is a charity that lifts people out of fuel poverty, and doing strides across the island. One of the questions I wanted to ask was on the island we do have quite a disproportionate volume of old housing stock on the island. The concern that I have is in the last couple of years we've seen 80% loss of private rented accommodation on the island. I was quite pleased with what you were saying, Leader, about the government support out there. But what support can we also give as the Isle of Wight Council to signpost our private landlords into doing the right thing for their property, to make sure that their property is cheap for their tenants to be able to live in? Because we're seeing a real problem on the island with a lot of loss of that accommodation. It's from private rented tenants. And I was just wondering what we can do to provide further support to those tenants and to those landlords.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller. I think that this is down to.
And I need to declare an interest here because I'm a B&B owner, so therefore I think I need to withdraw from this as well.
That's right. If I can, I'll take that away because I'm not going to answer on behalf of Alan Barnes and Amanda Gregory and the team. I think that, you know, we could obviously come up with some form of media announcement, or indeed, you know, other forms because these premises are checked when they come up for renewed tenancy and what have you.
I can just confirm that there is the Warm Up Wight is actually on our website, on the Isle of Wight Council's website homepage, so people can look up those grants and in that way. Thank you. Okay, so without further ado, I think this is a government-backed initiative. We're just having to implement as we do. I do hope that this helps people to come out of poverty. So all of those in favour of this recommendation, which is that we approve the, oh gosh, here we go, minimum energy efficient standards penalties. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. That's very good. Right, we can bring Councillor Andre back in. Crikey, I think this is the longest one on record, this meeting. Okay, so we move on now to item 8, and which is cabinet member announcements. So I have Councillor Jarman wishes to speak first.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I'm very pleased to provide an update on my work under the heading of transformative change, which is a key element of my cabinet portfolio. There have been several months of cross-chamber discussions and with extensive support of councillors and senior officers. I'm pleased to confirm that we're now in a position to move forward with the creation of a transformative change working group. The transformative change working group will leverage the organisational, business and commercial skills of councillors, expertise and experience of staff, and the continued support of the LGA to define an optimal framework for the Isle of Wight Council going forwards. I'm very pleased indeed to have had the cross-chamber support, which has been quite enthusiastic. The scope will be completed to include consideration of governance structures, hopefully which will address some of the issues raised by Councillor Brodie and others, financial systems and approach to decision making with a view of reporting the outcome of this work in May 2023. All areas of the Isle of Wight Council will be included to support our commercialisation strategy, evolution of functional business units and the structural optimisation to support trading and housing entities. We shall also ensure that we seek input from our town, parish and community councils and further leverage their expertise as well as that of the unions to ensure a strong future relationship with all of those bodies. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Did you want to save your question till the end? You can ask it now.
I'm Chair. Can Councillor Jarman just confirm for the record that at no time has he put this council across council discussions regarding this issue? Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand the question. Could you just repeat it, Councillor Brodie?
Did you do cross-council consultation?
So I've done consultation with the Conservative group and with the 3 independent councillors who have not blocked my emails.
That I would go and block Councillor Jarman's emails. That is falsehood. Thank you, Chair.
To qualify that, those that do not generate a reply saying your email has been deleted unread.
Okay. Councillor Julie Jones-Evans, you sorry.
But I'm not having that.
Noted. Thank you. Could you put your microphone off, please?
Yes, and I'm very happy to forward those emails that I've sent to other people now that I can know that they will be received to Councillor Brodie.
Thank you very much. Okay, Councillor Jones-Evans, you're next.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to touch on a couple of things with my portfolio. Obviously, you know, we're heavily involved as a regional partner in the City of Culture bid for Southampton 2025, and as some of you may have watched on the one show, it was a very harsh way of finding out that Bradford were the ultimate winners. So congratulations go to Bradford on that. You know, obviously terribly deserving as well as that accolade and all the investment that will bring. However, I think what we have learnt in this journey is there's so much commonality across the region and a willingness to work together. And as you know, cultural regeneration is, you know, this administration has pushed that up to the fore, especially given how many, as you saw in our quarter for performance details there regarding how many people on the island actually work in the creative industry is very, very important. But I just want to quickly just read this out. So I had a letter from Claire Whitaker, who's the bid director, and she sent out a thanks to everyone, and she said, put a personal note for us here. She said, Julie, a personal thank you for always joining us at every event and championing us all along the way. We know that our bid really did highlight Southampton's true culture and authentic voice, which is one of the key elements that the judges wanted to see throughout the bid. Isle of Wight has played a huge part in this. having you on board as a regional partner has been so valuable to us, and has really showcased the Hampstead joined up city with organisations across the city working together in collaboration for greater change through cultural-led regeneration. So we're moving on with this. So nothing's going to be wasted. And I've already been to one event already. So we're looking at doing a South Hampshire Solent-based strategy, and pulling out some of the things that went in the submission that we can still deliver. So nothing's lost. In fact, there's a lot being gained. So just wanted to feedback on that. I didn't want to not say anything because obviously there was a lot of disappointment, but I think there's still prizes there to be won. Just want to touch on a couple of things. Sorry, as very proud of One Leisure. And as you said, at the Staff Development Awards, Staff Recognition Awards, that they were very successful in 2 categories, and their efforts, across the island and within the organisation. So, fantastic, well done, One Leisure. And the continuing good work. We are now up to just under 69% of our One Card users. So that's 69% of what it was in 2019, and 2019 was actually our best year. So actually comparing at the very height of what we achieved. So continuing month on month to bring back figures there. And I know, strictly speaking, this is Councillor Bacon's area with the Medina Theatre, but again, we're getting bums on seats in the theatre. In May, we had 1,847 people use the theatre. 558. So we are moving forward with our figures there at the theatre. So continuing good work on that, and as Councillor John pointed out, obviously, we want that income to come back to mitigate some of the losses that we're seeing at the moment. So yes, I'll say thanks to the teams all round really for all their hard work.
Thank you very much. Councillor Stevens, did you wish to add anything?
Do you know, I was going to, but when we did the QPMR and Councillor Jarman mentioned housing and the stats, he's taken my breath away and he's given me nothing to do. So no, I don't wish to say anything else. Well done, Councillor Jarman.
Councillor Love.
Thank you, Chair. Just got a number of very quick things. So on our workforce, retention and employment, we've seen some improvement. It's only a small improvement, but it's a good step in the right direction. My director's been working with HR to develop an adult social care and housing strategy, and for retention and employment and moving forward. So we've got a number of stakeholders involved with that, and so that's the first team to do that, which is very positive. The independent living strategy, it's on target, and we've now had some focus groups with partnerships, so I'm very pleased about that moving forward positively. 49 people with learning disabilities have been interviewed as a part of that. The Healthcare Act is gradually receiving the information. We're going to set up a stakeholder group for that. So the guidance is slowly coming in. It takes a little bit of unfolding and working through, and we're going to be working in partnership with Children's Services in cross-party connections. John Nicholson is likely to be invited to be a part of that as part of the health and social care. Sorry, not health and social care, the health scrutiny. And that will include the leader, myself, and others to yet be decided and discussed. And on the public health side, we continue to work around recovery. And of course, as we've seen locally and nationally, the numbers are going up again around COVID at this time. The reporting structures are not the same as they were previously, because the government removed that system of reporting, so it's more difficult to track. I've been briefed about monkeypox, and that is working at a regional level. It's important to work at a regional level and not a local level. So at this time, we don't identify anybody. Should there be anybody on the island, it's important to stay at that level. I think underlying all of this is poverty. Everything that is, we talked quite a lot tonight about poverty, and I'm trying to develop strategies and I'm pleased to be saying that I'm working with Councillor Stevens on this and others, because it is not just one directorate. But my final thing that I want to talk about is my actual team, to say a few thank yous to my team, because they did quite well out of the staff awards, and so it's really important to just make sure that the teams know that we are watching and know that we care and value them. So my residents and community focused award was received and commended to Alison Cotton and Keely Proctor. The collaboration team did absolutely wonderful for their hospital social work team, and they were the winners of that particular award. Apprentice award went to a young man from our safeguarding team, Patrick Butt, who has been doing some really quite good work there, and I'm really pleased about hearing about those career progression, and it's great for helping people move forward. Inspirational manager was Jem Seaward, and finally, not forgetting the big award, which is just as valued as all the other awards, is the MBE going to Gemma Branch to the Services to Housing and Homelessness, and that it has got to be the big focus. Housing and poverty go together in terms of one impacts upon the other. And I do agree with Councillor Brodie that my big concern is this winter as we move forward, and that is what we've got to focus on totally.
Okay, if there's no one else, we move on to item number 9, which is consideration of the forward plan. Sorry, Debbie. Sorry, Councillor Andre. Sorry.
Just a couple of items. I was going to mention about the apprentice. I'm very delighted to give that award, but I think that has been ably covered by Councillor Love. So thank you, Councillor Love, for that. We now have 3 community pantries open across the island, with the plans to open more. I revisited the East Cowes Community Pantry a couple of weeks ago, and it's a bit of a double-edged sword, because we want people to engage with them. They are a very much needed resource, but it just highlights the situation on the island. 82 people a couple of weeks ago had actually signed up with the East Cowes Community Pantry. But I would stress that it's not just about food and giving out food. We are looking to actually supplement the service to signpost, so people, because it's membership, because it's a weekly visit, the volunteers actually get to know people, and through those conversations, so we're looking to actually introduce a full sort of wraparound signposting service from that. In terms of our holiday and activity food, we're currently awarding the contracts for summer, and we have 6 organisations who will be commissioned to deliver 7,756 places on the Isle of Wight schemes this summer, and that equates to 1,200 different children. So I think that's a real success story, and as we know, that's funding that has actually been agreed that is continued. So we've now got community organisations that are coming forward each time to actually run that. So that's very successful. And in terms of our Ukrainian families, we continue to assess and support over 60 families with children. Thank you.
Councillor Jordan.
Thank you. I don't want to prolong it, Chair, but I might as well have a little bit of a side. Just that we continue to work on passenger transport for patients travelling to the mainland for treatment. And I'd like to thank Councillor Nicholson and his committee, the Health and Wellbeing Subcommittee, who have created a working group to assist us in that. Very thankful for Councillor Nicholson's input and intervention, who introduced me immediately to the NHS, who I've met with, and we continue with our discussions with the 3 main ferry operators, and one specifically of those 3 who is interested in working on a scheme to improve patient travel and to ensure that this is slightly longer term, that later travel to and from treatment or release from hospital or release from treatment on the mainland will be efficient and people will be able to get home. So that is ongoing work. It's not easy to get this through, but we are working on it, and with the help of our Health and Wellbeing Committee, with the help of the NHS, who are very, very supportive of this, we're hopeful of making some improvements for those that are being sent to the mainland for treatment, specifically cancer, but other treatment as well. Thank you, Chair.
That's really good news. Thank you very much. It's been a long bugbear of mine. Okay, so we move on now to item number 9 on the agenda, which is consideration of the forward plan. Are there any items that need to be amended, added or removed from the forward plan, please? Councillor Fuller.
I just wanted to ask the Wendy a question. We've got a paper coming up about planning enforcement. I was just wondering, when do you think that might go before Cabinet? Because it is something that I keep on trying to G up, but I think the paper works with you, Wendy. So I thought I'd ask you sneakily.
Thank you, Chair. The paperwork's back with you, Councillor Fuller, with my comments on it. I think it needs tidying up, and then it's down to you and the service team to decide which is the appropriate Cabinet that you want to bring it to.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay, nothing else? Okay, so we move on now to item 10 on the agenda, which is members' question times.
Previous meeting of the Cabinet, the decision was taken not to close Rookley School. Since then, in the media, the heads and governors of a number of the schools on the island concurred with me that not closing overcapacity in the system will actually have a harmful effect on education across the board. It seems that the heads and chairs of governors have a lot of sympathy for the view that I expressed at corporate scrutiny. Will this now be looked at realistically in terms of the number of places that we have in excess of the need on the island? I should imagine that's for Debbie Andre.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Quirk. Oh, is he still there? No, I think he's still there. As Councillor Quirk, I'm sure, is well aware, because this question has been asked several times, there is a paper coming to the Policy and Scrutiny for Children's Services on the 1st of September. But I can reassure Councillor Quirk that we are taking into account fully strategic place planning. We are well aware. We are looking at all views, and as I say, a paper will be coming forward. But I'll hand over to Brian Pope if he wants to add anything to that.
Not really, Councillor Andre. I think that's the facts of the matter. Is we are bringing forward as officers and Councillor Andre a report to the Policy and Scrutiny Committee in September, and that'll be the right place for that to be scrutinised properly.
Thank you very much. I'm presuming Councillor Quirks is a legacy hand because he's not on the screen. So thank you very much. Oh no, he's come back. No.
I accept that there is going to be a paper coming forward, but the same issues apply to these places as applies to Rookley, and at some stage this administration is going to have to actually take a grip of the situation and consider closing school places. And if you're not willing to do that, there's not much point putting the paper to the scrutiny committee.
As I said, we are actually taking into account strategic place planning, and I would reiterate what I've said previously. This is not just about Chillerton and Rookley. This is about strategic place planning for primary schools on the Isle of Wight.
Okay, I'm moving on from that one now. There are no other members' questions, so I'm moving on to item 11, which is the exclusion of a public and press, please, for the next item. So would you, Councillor, Mr. Potter, could you please read the reasons why we need to exclude the public and the press? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. The exclusion motion, which is a matter of discretion for the Cabinet, reads as follows: a slight alteration than the published wording. It's that under Regulation 4(2)(b) of the Local Authorities Executive Arrangements, Meetings and Access to Information, England Regulations 2012, the public and press be excluded from the meeting for the following item of business, namely agenda item 12A, on the grounds that there is likely to be disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of Schedule 12A to the Local Government Act 1972, and in all the circumstances of the case, the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. For the sake of clarity, particularly for members of the public listening this evening, paragraph 3, to which I refer in terms of the Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 72, relates to items of business relating to an individual or their business. That's paragraph 3. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, so without further ado, I